بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد يقول الإمام التحاوي ومن لم يتوقع النفي والتشبيه زلة ولم يسب التنزيه فإن ربنا جل وعلا موصوف بصفات الوحدانية منعوت بنعوت الفردانية ليس بمعناه أحد من البرية تعالى الله عن الحدود والغايات والأركان والأدوات لا تحويه الجهات الست كسائر المبتدعات. Imam al-Tahawi rahmatullah alayh continues into the same Aqidah of seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sighting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having ru'yat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says that whatever is forbidden to perceive, to think, to imagine, to express, whoever will not stay away from that, and whoever did not stay away from bringing any examples or similarities, then he will move away from the right path. You cannot give any example that this is how we will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or you cannot have particular definition or particular expression or particular explanation. How it will take place, only Allah knows. We will enjoy there. And that is what we should submit to. We should surrender to. If we have submission and surrendership, then we are according to the Aqidah. And we start explaining things the way we explain meeting of creation or seeing of creation, then we will move away from the right path. And if we will not have correct tanzih means that whatever you can think of, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond that. Allah is pure from that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given us ability to see one another, but the way we see one another, when we will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure from our comprehension of seeing one another. So tanzih, we should have correct tanzih, that whatever comes to your mind, whatever comes to your imagination, we are human. We are human. We are human. So sometime, thought comes, but say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Subhanallahi ta'ala amma yasifun. Whatever your explaining, Allah is pure from that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond than that. Al-ijzu an idrakihi huwa al-idraku. We are unable to grasp the whole reality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Exactly on the same way, we are unable to describe how we will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world. Our description, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure from that. The type of description we will imagine or we will think of, Allah is pure from that. That is pure tanzih. So we should have correct tanzih, that we declare purification of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from our comprehension, from our explanation, from our understanding. فَإِنَّ رَبَّنَا جَلَّ وَعَلَى مَوْصُوفٌ بِصِفَاتِ الْوَحْدَانِيَّةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attribute is unique, befitting only unto Him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's qualities and attributes, they befit only unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It doesn't, it has no similarity. There is no example of that. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. Nothing is like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When nothing is like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also will be unique. When Allah is unique, then Allah's meeting will be unique. Allah's sighting will be unique. Man'utun bi nu'util fardaniyati. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's qualities. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, only His Zat is alone connected to those sifat. Nobody else. Nobody else. Laysa bimanahu ahadum min al-barriyati. When we mention Allah's qualities and sifat, then we cannot understand that sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way we understand sifat of makhluk. An example, we also see, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also basir, but you cannot think our seeing like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seeing. Imagine who gave us all abilities to see. Then what type of seeing He will have, that is beyond our comprehension. Ta'ala Allahu ta'ala anil hududi wal ghayati wal arkani wal adawat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is free from the boundaries, from any end, from any limb, from any tool. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is independent. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is independent. You cannot bring Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from any direction, from any you cannot connect end to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You cannot connect any boundary to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no boundary of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no end of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Na'udhu billah, we cannot think of like any feature onto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La tahwihi al-jihatu sittu kasa'iri al-mubtada'at. There are 6 sides. Your right and your left, your front and your back, and from on top and at the bottom. All these 6 sides, we cannot connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We cannot connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whoever connects it, then they falls into the category of innovators. They are mubtadi'. They are committing bid'at. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is beautiful word. Subhanallahi ta'ala amma yasifun. Whatever anybody wants to describe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is pure from that description. And that will bring real amazement. This Aqidah, our Salaf used to explain, some Salaf, they felt at that time, likes of Imaam and Malik rahmatullah alayhi, they felt that whole earth, they were filled by His love. Somebody becomes beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes announcement into the angelic world that so and so Allah loves him. And then those angels, they spread this word and it comes to the earth. And then somehow the other, their love is being put into the hearts of all creation, everybody. So when these types of people, when they used to explain Aqidah of Ru'yat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it was sounding very different. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us hal. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us such that we internalize these types of Aqidah. That we are very excited, we are always anticipating, we are drawn into the love and ishq and muhabbat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every Allah comes out from our tongue. That is like unending weight. That, oh Allah, from the unseen world, I am tossing and turning to meet you. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make every second of our life, every moment of our life, that we keep growing into the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because one day we are going to meet our ultimate Rabb and beloved and mahbub haqiqi. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this whole life like that. When you internalize love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then you discuss this aqidah of the ru'yat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it leaves different impact. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us all ashiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us all such that every salat we perform, every good deed we do, every breath we take, that we inhale love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We inhale love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, muhabbat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are unable to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we are doing as if we are in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We see Him by the eyes of our iman. In this world, you keep seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the eyes of your iman, then into the Jannat, the result and reward will come, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it reality. And how that reality will take place, only Allah knows. Jannat is the place of excitement. Jannat is the place of amazement. Jannat is the place of bewilderment. And that bewilderment will keep on growing. That amazement will keep on growing. That excitement will never end. It will never come down. It will be always, onto the move, onto the boost, onto the advancement. Always. And one of the peak excitement we will have, that is meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah make us such that we remain in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 24/7. Some people will be in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every morning. Some people will be in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every evening. Some people will have that opportunity once in a day. Some people will have that opportunity once in a week. Some people will have opportunity according to their level of iman and amal. And some people, they will never be absent. They will be always present. And see, and again, there too, total discovery of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is impossible. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no end. We have end. We have boundaries. We are creation. He is the creator. So that is what will be the most exciting moment of the Jannati. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us countless moments like that into the Jannat. And may Allah make this world that, those shuhada in Gaza, they are giving their lives. Imagine, and believe it or not, if you give your life for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then those moments of traveling from this world to next world, we cannot even describe it, the taste, the deliciousness, the sweetness, the amazement, the way they will be entertained. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove these calamities from them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring ease. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala change their circumstances into Imaam. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free Masjidul Aqsa. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free whole Palestine. It will be freed, inshallah. It will be freed. Masjidul Aqsa will be freed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not unaware. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not unaware. And when it comes to zulm, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows shirk. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows kufr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows atheism. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows sins. Because Allah is Allah. But when it comes to zulm, bigger the zalim, Allah give bigger the respite. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala catches, then that will be the end of zulm. And divine, hidden, unseen system of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be doing many things. But we are many times blindfolded by the narrative of media. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us spectacles of Quran and Sunnah. We see the world by the spectacles of Quran and Sunnah, then inshallah we will not be disappointed, we will not be depressed, we will never lose hope, we will never be frustrated, we will never be agitating, we will not be revenging, we will have forbearance. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them also qualities of greatest mujahideen of all times, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them the qualities of Sahaba, forbearance of Sahaba, courage of Sahaba, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resurrect them with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with Sahaba, with each one of them will be getting the reward of 50 Sahaba. They are doing deal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whenever they are crossing the bridge of shahadat and martyrdom, then they will be celebrating to one another that, oh, your deal was even more amazing than my deal. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring afiyat onto the whole globe, onto the whole mankind. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them all realization. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ya awwal al-awwaleen, ya akhir al-akhirin, ya rahim al-masakin, ya dhal quwwati al-mateen, ya dhal manni fala yumannu alayk, ya dhal tawul, ya dhal jalali wal ikram. La ilaha illa ant, زهر الللاجئين وجار المستجيرين ومأمن الخائفين يا مأمن الخائفين إن كنت كتبتنا عندك في أم الكتاب أشقياء فامحو عنا اسم الشقاء وإن كنت كتبتنا عندك في أم الكتاب مقطرا علينا أرزاقنا فامحو تقطير رزقنا وحرمان رزقنا واكتبنا وأثبتنا عندك سعداء ووفقنا الخير فإنك تقول في كتابك يمحو الله ما يشاء ويثبت وعنده الكتاب. اللهم إنا نسألك فعل الخيرات وترك المنكرات وحب المساكين وأن تغفر لنا وترحمنا. فإذا أردت بقوم فتنة فتوفنا غير مفتونين غير خزايا ولا ندامى ولا مفتونين. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا توفنا مسلما والحقنا بالصالحين. اللهم ثبتنا على الإيمان وأمتنا على الإيمان واهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم من النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين. اللهم أحسن عاقبتنا في الأمور كلها وأجرنا من خزي الدنيا وعذاب القبر وعذاب الآخرة. اللهم حرر المسجد الأقصى. اللهم حرر المسلمين المظلومين في غزة وفي فلسطين وفي أنحاء العالم. اللهم كن لهم ولا تكن عليهم. اللهم انصرهم نصرا مؤيدا نصرا عزيزا. اللهم أعلي كلمة الإسلام. اللهم ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه سيدنا وحبيبنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك.